Welcome to Aliens with JW, the podcast where aliens have conversations with humans. Today's show is with Steven Shonts, the founder of The Hermit, a company making delicious, nutritious, and sustainable protein snacks. Steven Shonts, welcome to the show.
Hey JW, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I'm super excited to have you on the show. Oh my God, your products are super amazing. The Thai chili lime is one of my favorites. I've been eating them and they're super delicious.
Dude, glad to hear it.
Hmm. Let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to create The Hermit?
Well, I mean it's a long journey. I guess food has always been really core to my identity and my life. You know, when I was in my early 20s, I actually went through some struggles with an autoimmune disease. Was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 19, um, and was kind of really sick for a couple of years. Was in the hospital a couple of times, and I had part of my small intestine removed. And eventually, I kind of found out that through tailoring my diet, just specific to me, I was able to kind of get myself in remission and lead a healthy lifestyle. And ever since then, I've kind of just seen such a direct connection between, for the food that we eat and how we feel, both our bodies and mentally too. I'm a big, I've always been a big believer that it's important to watch what you eat. And I do think it depends kind of, everybody's different and every body is different. So, I don't want to tell you should eat one way or another. And I guess I uh, I had an office job in New York for a while, but I had the good fortune of being able to leave that job a couple years ago, and uh, you know one thing led to another. I found myself living in Southeast Asia, actually, traveling around a lot and eating a lot of food, and I was always kind of excited to be able to try new foods, new cuisines, because there's so many. The culinary traditions here are so rich and diverse. But I also I'm a picky eater, to put it bluntly. So I was always on the search for foods that met my nutritional needs and I thought were delicious. And so the squid, it just kept popping onto my plate, so to speak. And it's a very common food out here, and I just thought I wanted to bring that back to America and introduce it to people.
Oh, man, and at least my next question would be is like, how did you come up with the name for your company?
Well, yeah, I think it kind of fits in the sense that I myself, I think when I quit my job, again a couple years ago, I kind of set out and I wanted to wander, and it sounds like a cliche, but kind of think about what I want to do with the rest of my life. Like, what are the things that I kind of value? And I'm sure you can identify a little with this too. Is you're living in New York, New York City, like a lot of people value the same thing. It's like money, success, like things like that. And yeah, it's just like that wasn't doing it for me anymore. It's just like, money is necessary, but what I really cared about was, like, again, combination of food, cuisine, and then the environment, sustainability. How can we feed ourselves so we're not messing up the planet for our kids? And and so, like, this was all took me 2 years really to kind of like unpack, because I was just wandering aimlessly throughout the world. And one of my friend named Joanne, is really into tarot and tarot reading. And she kind of said, well, that's the archetype called the hermit in the tarot. There's like a card in every tarot deck. It's the hermit, and he's a wizened old man. He's like hunched over in his like cloak, and he's wandering across like just this barren like field of snow or something, with like a little snow-capped mountain in the background. he's on a journey, and it's like, is that journey to discover truths about the world? Is he in search of some sort of cosmic truth, or maybe he's actually just kind of searching for inner truth, like something that's already kind of in himself. And so when we were thinking about, like, right, we're coming up with this new product, and it took a long time to kind of discover the truth that we think that this is a really cool thing that people should be eating more of. It's nutritious, it's sustainable. That journey kind of ends up looking a lot like the hermit in the tarot deck. And so that my friend Joanne, who kind of gave me this idea, said, like, well, she's a painter and illustrator too, and she was like, I would love to just like draw that for you, because if we made him be a squid, like that would be pretty funny. And so yeah, I guess it just spiraled from that idea.
That is super cool because, like, about around the same time, about a couple years ago, I was just wandering myself. Like, I was just trying to figure things out, and I came back to New Orleans, and I just like started drawing, and I just like locked myself away for like about maybe for a half a year, and I just started writing graphic novels, creating actual characters, making prototypes, and all this stuff came from this whole idea. And and just more and more and more, I was like, I want to create something that's like me but doesn't look like me. And I have a love for aliens for some reason, for aliens, for vampires, for foxes, and these different things. So it all came together to this alien, and I love hearts because we all have hearts. So this is like all came together like this, and this is what you see today. This interesting exploration of trying to discover myself and expand myself as an artist.
Have you been in contact with aliens personally? Have you been influenced by, or like, where does this fascination or interest come from, or do you even know?
Oh, I would say growing up, I always watched alien movies. You think about Sonic. Sonic's basically an alien. Predator, the movie, he's an alien. Transformers, they're all aliens. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, I think almost all the movies I grew up watching was a bunch of aliens. Even the Marvel universe, a lot of them are aliens. So I was like, oh. So my childhood movies inspired my love for aliens. And to answer your question, have I ever experienced had experience with aliens? I don't know if I have or have not, because not all I would not know.
It goes back to what I said earlier, that I don't know if I've ever been interviewed by an alien. I mean, I'm not aware of ever doing a podcast with an alien before this, obviously.
Yeah,
So it's very exciting.
yeah. I would say, like, I also grew up watching Men in Black, the movie, and how
Oh
they
yeah.
were like people that they knew how to disguise themselves, and so they blended in with the world, so you didn't know they were aliens until they came home. So is there a possibility that this alien could, when I go into the real world, it might not look like an alien. It just might look like Joshua, the person that created it. I don't know. I might play around with that idea. Is that when I go out into the real world, people don't see my alien, they just see me. When I'm behind closed door and I want people to see the alien, they see the real alien. Might be a concept.
Uh,
Might make it a
I
movie.
love I love that. Yeah, and that's like a piece of sort of spiritual advice I've heard a couple times is like, you should try to be kind to everyone that you meet, strangers, whatever, because you don't know, I've heard it said in different ways. You don't know what dragons they're secretly fighting, right? When they go home and they're behind closed doors. And it kind of goes back to like a lot of Greek and Roman mythology. Like these stories just involve people. It's, oh, some sort of like homeless wanderer. Maybe he's a hermit. Maybe he's just like you know, they think he's like a poor person or a homeless person wanders into town, and some families, just because they have good values, they invite him in for a meal and they give him dinner, and it turns out that that's like a god who had just disguised himself to test the people. Or in the other direction, if right, if they the people in this town like abuse the god or like are mean to him and tell him to go out, then like really bad things are going to happen. I just like that lesson that it's like you actually don't know who you're talking to most of the time, and it's a good reason just to try to be kind, empathetic, a good person, right?
Yeah, and like being a good person to everybody is like important, and it like also shapes our own personal values of like who we are as people. And so like actually I want to ask this question. How closely is the hermit aligned to who you are as a person?
I mean, I think like the I'd say the best explanation I have is again, I would lean on my friend Joanne, because she's taught me so much of what my understanding of tarot and these cards. And I think that each of the cards represents a facet that's lives in all of us. So I think that everybody inside has a hermit that's like, right, even people talk about it colloquially, like I'm going into hermit mode this weekend or something. But I think more deep seated is like everyone has a yearning in some sense to go on a quest of self discovery, right? And some people do it like literally, like more and more people are taking time off work or taking a gap year in college and just going and wandering or traveling. But I think even people who don't have that opportunity still, there's a part of them that they can identify with when you talk about the hermit. And this is true of like many of the different tarot cards. There's the magician and the high priestess and the pope and the lovers and the death card, right? And these are all just archetypes that everybody has within them. So I don't want to, I don't, I'm not in some sense a hermit. I travel a lot, and I've been on this quest to find the perfect protein. But at the same time, I've been in a dedicated relationship with my partner for the past 3 years, and I have a condo in Bangkok now, and I spend most of my time here. So it's not like a yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. Because like I always think about myself with my characters and everything that I make. I'm like, how does it align to me a little bit? In every character that I have, there's a part of it that is me, but then the character itself is its own entity. It has its own thoughts, it has its own style. And it's only a small bit of me that is in each character. And so this is JW, but this is the alien version of me. So it's kind of like an alter ego that has totally different things, but a small part is me. So yeah,
Yeah,
I totally
that makes a
relate
lot of
to it.
sense. It's like, and you can sort of like act out, or you can get catharsis, right? As an artist, through creating a character that it embodies some, maybe it's like a core fracture, it's a friction in your life, or a conflict, or maybe it's another person in your life, right? And it's, bringing into life like a character like you're doing, I think can be a way to just address or develop a deeper understanding of that tension, or that conflict or something. So
And then, like in creating, I think I have like over 100 characters. And so in like talking to somebody like yourself that has created multiple flavors for and experimenting with food, how did you choose your flavors for your products?
man, that's a good question. So like I always knew it, since I've been living on and off in Thailand for a couple of years now, and I just like I'm obsessed with the cuisine and the food, and I spend a ton of time just I cook like every day, at least a meal or two, and so I think like I knew I wanted a Thai flavor, um, and it was hard translating that into something that an American consumer would really get. And the other challenge is it's a shelf stable product, and it's that it's 12 to 18 months before it kind of expires. So we need to be careful about the ingredients that we're using. Just I really like coconut, but like that's an example of something you just can't put into a shelf stable jerky, because it'll kind of rancidify. And so we were constrained a little bit by the types of ingredients we could work with. I also am like, I'm a clean ingredient kind of nut. Like I'm really obsessed with not putting anything in the product that I'm not going to eat a ton of myself. I eat a lot of this jerky. I'm going to continue to eat a lot of it. That should be obvious. And so we didn't want anything objectionable, like no MSG. There's no added sugar at all in the product, and so that again kind of limits a little bit actually the types of flavor profiles you can go with. But yeah, I think just the Thai it's tom yum, like the soup, pretty much that flavor, like tom sap is another Thai soup. It's spicy, sour, with some of that galangal and lemongrass in it. That was kind of like the core flavor. And then the ginger scallion. I was actually reading a book about Chinese cuisines, and this is a common Sichuan flavor profile that is used with fish, and so it was sort of a natural thing to add on to squid. It, I think, works very well with the aroma and natural savoriness of the fish when you add in a ginger and a scallion, and some of that roasted red pepper. And the Italian, that was actually not my idea at all. It was my grandfather's, because the only time he's ever eaten calamari is in an Italian restaurant. And so he naturally went to just like Italian herbs and like a squeeze of lemon on it. He's like, oh, I love that. You should just make that. And I figured that for people who are not very adventurous, maybe, or people who are just, they're familiar with the Western preparation of calamari, that they would naturally find that flavor to be just like approachable. So, yeah.
Yeah. And like one of my other favorite parts of your product is that it has 28 grams of protein. I was like, man, that is super amazing. That leads me to my next question. How did you discover the dry squid?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I think the interesting question is actually like, why don't Americans eat squid? Because the whole rest of the world eats a lot of squid. And and so yeah, I would almost turn the question around, because yeah, it's not just Asia, and it's there's so much squid everywhere in Asia that you go. If you're in a supermarket, there are a bunch of squid jerky products. If you're at a night market, if you're just like wandering down the street at lunchtime, there's usually like a little cart where a guy has a bunch of dried squids, and he'll put one over a charcoal, flip it a couple times, and then give you the squid with some dipping sauce, and it's delicious. And but even in Europe, calamari is a pretty common ingredient in South Central America. So yeah, I really think that that the question is like, why have Americans never really gotten into it? And yeah, I think more that's just inertia, and it's like, um, conventionally Americans haven't eaten a lot of seafood, with very low seafood consumption per person compared with most other countries. But I think we see that that's changing a lot, and then people are just focused on fish that are like bigger fish, or that they're just more used to eating things like salmon or tuna, maybe like cod, and that they're not familiar with necessarily how to prepare squid. They don't think of it as food. So that's really the perception that we're trying to change with the product. All of our squid comes from America, and I think what people find really shocking is like, out of every fishing boat in California, every fishery in the state of California, squid is the number one like fish that is caught in California. Yeah, and it's not even close. It's like far and away the number one. And we freeze it all and we send it to China, basically. To me, it's such a missed opportunity, because it's like, again, it's quite sustainable. These are all like certified fisheries against that the Marine Stewardship Council, gives them all its blessing, and just says this is a very sustainably harvested, renewable source of seafood protein and everything. and it's also super nutritious. It's like high in collagen, like you said. It's like super high in protein. Squid is basically just pure protein. So
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I think the real interesting question is like, why haven't Americans caught on to this yet? And we're just trying to change that.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking because like the human me and also the alien version of me, and hasn't seen we I've seen people eat a lot of calamari. I've seen people, but never as in like snacks and in products and done differently. And but then I also talked to my friends that have traveled the world. They were like, oh, and like squid jerky and like squid. They like, oh my god. They'll talk about different products, different ways of using it, and I was like, oh, it's like more international, not like not really known in America and different places. So like, yeah, that is a great question that to flip it and ask. Why isn't it widely in stores? Because it's sustainable. It's yeah, that's a great question. I got to think about that more.
But have you ever eaten like, because I think like most Americans, if you look at the data, it's like, you know, beef, chicken, pork, eggs, and then dairy, like milk and milk products, and maybe lower down there's salmon, tilapia, some other fish, shrimp. But do you have you ever had like what's the weirdest protein that you've had that you can think of? Like
Oh,
have
so
you
that's a great question. So I'm from the South. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and when it comes to like eating protein and different, we eat a I've tried so many different animals in different ways, like alligator sausage. I've had like think about the weirdest thing I've ever ate. Ooh,
alligators pretty that's pretty weird. Although I guess yeah, Cajun like food it feels like it belongs in in Louisiana, but I grew up in Minnesota, so I never had alligators as a kid.
I would say like
That's pretty.
down. Yeah, sorry. Oh,
No, no, go
crawfish.
ahead.
Have you ever had crawfish?
Oh, yeah, that also sounds like something that you would eat in Louisiana, but not commonly consumed outside of like the Bayou country.
Yeah, and so I think that's the one, like another food to where when like people like we have crawfish boils, restaurants in the summer, and you literally buy pounds of crawfish and you eat it with like but potatoes, and I'm like, but nowhere else you really do that. So I was like, so where I'm from is kind of similar to where there's a lot of things from foods that we eat down here that nobody eats anywhere else in America in some parts of the world. So like when it comes to like animals, I think I've almost ate almost every type of animal at some point in my life, knowing or not knowing.
Every type of animal.
Almost, like, especially with
That,
seafood. Oh, like we eat a lot of
uh,
seafood out here, so I, well, I've had this before. I just didn't know I just didn't know it was dry squid, but I've ate it before.
that's you had frog.
Yes, I've had frog.
Nice,
Oh, God.
because that's
We,
I think that's something most Americans would consider pretty weird. They'd be like, I don't know if I'd eat it, but again, that's like in Thailand, it's a common dish to see on a menu. It just tastes kind of like a juicy chicken. I think it's quite good, and because it's so small, right? And they you can farm raise them, so to speak, but also a lot of them are sort of wild caught, and in both cases very sustainable. Like it's because it's such a small animal, and they grow so fast and they can eat like bugs and stuff. It just ends up being really good for the planet to eat stuff like, instead of just like, oh, I'm just gonna eat like, I'm gonna have a 1 pound ribeye for dinner every day or whatever. It's like um, that's what has led to a lot of the industrial agricultural systems that especially thrive in America, where it's because we only eat like three protein sources basically, that we've built up these really sophisticated, hyper efficient systems to grow a bunch of corn in Iowa, transport it to feedlots where like we cram all these cows together and then they just eat a bunch of this corn, which naturally cows didn't ever eat corn, and they're not evolved to eat corn, so like they're kind of like not healthy the whole time they're living, and then we just like slaughter them and ship them off to grocery stores or whatever. It's like I feel like the path forward as a society is like we kind of need to go back to that idea of like, well, I live in Louisiana and there are a lot of crayfish around here, and like you should eat the crayfish, man. Like it's the natural protein source because it's like right in your backyard and free, and you don't even have to, you just go collect them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's really, it's kind of like the whole mission of the company is even beyond squids. We want to find the protein sources that are like that fit that criteria. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense because, like, I know coming back home, it's like a lot of things are locally sourced. A lot of the food, a lot of the seafood, and that's one of the things I really started enjoying. Cause like it's like looking at the locally sourced, but also the foods that in season, like seasonal foods. Like, what
Mm.
is the actual season? So you were thinking about crawfish. Crawfish is not something that's done all year round. It's like a season where they will eat the crawfish, even with the oysters. So down here, people eat a lot of oysters, but there's like
Oh,
a season to eat the oysters. And in that window, it'd be like my one of the only times that you'll have it locally sourced.
it's a months that end in Y, right?
Yeah.
Or the ones that you eat the oysters, and the other months you kind of want to avoid them because of, I forget exactly why, but uh, no,
Yeah.
I love that philosophy though, and it's so 75% of seafood that we eat in America is imported from abroad, and if you take that and then you realize that like we catch all this squid in America, and then we just export it all. You're like, wait, why? Like, why are we doing that? Like, we should like leave the squid here and like import less of the other seafood. It just eat local, right? To the
Yeah.
extent that that's possible. So,
Yeah. And talking about like eating food locally, that big next leads me to my next question. When did you know that your company needed to exist? Because of like, yeah.
uh, I mean, I kept eating the squid jerky. Um, One of my friends from college actually, he's a Malaysian, and uh, he went back and he ended up taking over his family's business, which is like a small seafood processing concern in Malaysia. So I went down there just to catch up with him 2 years ago, and we were hanging out, and I was like, we went to a 7-Eleven because every 7-Eleven in like Southeast Asia just has squid jerky, and I got some of it, and he was like looking at it like, what? Like he's like, what is this? And I was, like his like company like processes squid, and he wasn't familiar with it, and I was like, I don't know, man, this, I feel like you should do this, like Americans, we could probably get Americans to eat it. And yeah, so then I just, he was like, I don't know, that sounds like a dumb idea, right? This like, he's like, I don't get it, like I don't get beef jerky, I don't get anything like this. So but that's where kind of the idea popped in my head, and then I kept telling people about it, and a lot of them, the reaction of 90% of people when you tell them is like, that's a really bad idea. Like you're not going to be successful. Like, and especially because in my previous like career and everything, like I did nothing to do with food. Like I worked in data analytics or whatever. So uh, honestly, a lot of it was my inner like conviction that this was a good idea, and then I kept trying to test the idea by pitching it to different people, and by gathering data on like the market, like what exactly do people buy? How, are people willing to try kind of new products in certain ways? And the more I like asked questions like that, the more I just kept getting answers that were like, well, I think that the market could support a product like this. I think that we could make it. It's like technically feasible. And there's certainly a lot of squid in America to use. And so, I just kept going through like having a lot of people be like, this is a stupid idea. I don't know why my grandfather was like the number one, like, he's like, you're crazy, kid. Like, I don't know what you're doing. It's like no one wants to eat that. And so yeah, I guess that's kind of how it went. It's how it's still going. Honestly, a lot of people try it and they're like, hey, that's not for me. Like, I don't like that. And that's fine, right? It's like, you don't, as an artist, you don't need everyone to like your art. And in fact, it's probably a bad sign, right? It's like you're not really doing anything too interesting if everyone's like, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
You got to be controversial.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I think a lot of I feel like a lot of the best ideas are when people don't understand it at first, or when they look at it and they're like, it's different. And when things are different, I don't know what people push back. And like even with art, I look at like some of the most legendary artists of all time. When they did something new at first, the world didn't accept it, or the world pushed back, and then a few years later, everybody loved it. Oh my God, you're a revolutionary. You're a genius. This is like the best product ever in the world. And you're like, oh. But at the beginning, even with my characters, they're aliens. They have heart-shaped eyes. Some people like them. Some people don't like them. Some people are scared of them. Some people like don't understand them. And I'm like, that's okay. Those that will get it. Those that like it will like it.
And it's the Mahatma Gandhi quote. It's like, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And so it's like I feel like we're both at the early stages of of that story.
Yes, we are.
and and so you have to keep reminding yourself. You're like, yeah, like, and they just don't get it. Maybe they don't get it yet. Maybe in 10 years, that person who's like, I don't want to try this, is like clamoring to buy some squid jerky because they
Yeah,
finally seen the light, or they're snatching up your graphic novels because they're like, wait, this guy was onto something.
yeah, yeah. At least it's like for this next part, I'm just going to ask you some random questions and say the first thing that comes to you.
All right.
Why does the hermit love the outdoors?
Ooh, I think the connection between nature and our souls is like, it's like the most deep-seated thing that we have programmed into us, is just to be comfortable in nature. And I think civilization has progressed to a point where so many of us live very detached from nature. But I think people more and more in the past decades have realized, like, we need to live like in coexistence with nature, and we need to reestablish our personal relationships with it. And that's different for everyone. I mean, I spend a lot of my time in like a condo building in a city, but it's always like deeply important that I make time to like get back out into the woods, into the forest, to the ocean, whatever. So yeah, I think that's why the hermit seeks solace and understanding in the natural world, because ultimately we come from that world. So yeah.
What's next on the hermit's adventures?
Well, first thing he needs to do is to convince enough people to start consuming this revolutionary new jerky product. um, and beyond that, once he has their attention, I think, and once people are sort of actually, it's a sustainable business. I think there are a lot of other protein sources that we can work with. I've I'm going to Japan next month to do some research, because I think the Japanese are centuries ahead of the West in terms of snack food. And um, there should be a lot of inspiration there, but there are there's a lot of wild caught seafood protein that I think really meets the criteria that, super healthy, and it's very renewable. It's very sustainable. So the hermit wants to get people to eat more of that stuff.
And why is community important to the hermit?
I mean, I think nothing happens unless people can sort of together decide to change their behavior. And so, I actually think this is why I was originally hesitant to call the brand the hermit, is because the myth we have is that the hermit walks alone. He's just one man or one woman, in search of truth. But in reality, right, that the hermit follows in the footsteps of others that went before him. That's always been true. And the idea that, one man can be an island, to me is it's a farce, and it's a very, very destructive idea that somehow some people, are just superior to others, right? It's like the root of all evil in the world. So I think that's right. Your question might be more locally based to like the company. Well, of course we can't prosper as a company unless we embrace what the community we developed around the product wants. Right? If they don't like the product, if they don't believe in it, there is no product. But I'd say like my answer to that is even larger, which is like as a society, we can't go forward unless people realize that our lives are meaningless outside of the context of the other people in the world, and that they're the foundation for everything that we do. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Um, if the hermit was a superhero, what would the hermit symbol mean?
I think one of the hardest things as a human to understand is oneself, and so I think it's a very meaningful journey to set out on, to try to develop a better understanding of your own self, uh, and so I'd say that would be his superpower, sort of self awareness, or self introspection. I think obviously no one ever makes it all the way down to the bottom in terms of self examination, but just the ability to try to live more in accordance with your own will. That would be his superpower.
And what is some advice or wisdom you wish someone would have shared with you about creating a company that makes delicious, nutritious, and sustainable protein snacks?
I read this book, Gödel Escher Bach, and the author proposes a law which he names after himself. It's called Hofstadter's Law, and it states that everything takes longer than you plan for it to take, even when you take into account Hofstadter's Law. And that is a true law in my experience for developing anything, but especially a food product. Um, there have just been a lot of things that have gone like not the way we thought they would, and it took many more trials than we expected it to. It's been more expensive than we expected it to be. And yeah, so just sort of like building in a buffer, whether originally we were going to start selling it in March, and then that got pushed to the end of April, and then that got pushed until June. And you just have to like roll with the punches there, I guess. Just and build in a buffer, right? Whether that's a financial one or in your timeline, just so that you're not over promising to your stakeholders.
Hmm. I could totally relate to that because, like, in doing what I'm doing, like a lot of I had to think about a lot of those same scenarios. It's like, when would I release the books? Timelining, copywriting, the copyright, definitely the copywriting process. I didn't know it took that long, so I had to push back my release dates for my books because the copyrights. I was like, even thinking
Oh,
about yes, even trademarking. I'm like, I learned how long that all these things take, and I'm like, wow, this stuff really delays the product. Yeah. So like, I totally
or
understand. Like, I'm there
so
right now with a lot of stuff.
there's this it's called the monkey on the pedestal problem, which is like you have you have this idea that you're gonna, put on a show, and it involves a monkey sitting on a pedestal, and the monkey like answers the audience's questions when they ask him. And so then the obvious thing to do once you have this idea is you start building the pedestal, and you spend like 6 months and like your life savings like making like a really cool looking pedestal, and you build it, and you're like, okay, cool, now let's go get that monkey. and and like it's like you need to take the hardest thing, right, the thing that you're not actually convinced is even feasible, and tackle that problem first as a proof of concept, and then you can do all the other stuff. You can make a pedestal whenever, right? But like you only have one shot to make the monkey. And so like for us that was right. I had it needs to meet all these conditions: no added sugar, no added junk like chemicals, weird stuff. And the obvious question for like a year was like, is that possible? Like, is it possible to make something that's like edible and tastes good, but also like meets all those requirements? And in the background, the whole time, I'm like coming up with a name for the company. I'm like, right, like incorporating it and doing all this other stuff that's like not that hard. It's like, right, you can incorporate LLC, like anybody can do that. It's not hard. So don't get distracted by things like that before you're actually sure that what you're doing is going to work. And um, your idea, or what you said, reminds me of that, where you're like, we have a trademark that's I don't think we're going to hear back for another couple of months still. And I'm not as worried. I think copywriting is obviously, it's a much bigger deal, that you have that in place versus a trademark, but I can empathize.
I totally get this. Oh yeah, this is the last question. Is there anything you would like to share before we end the show?
um, oh, oh, I got a squid tattoo.
Ah, that's dope. That's cool. That's super cool.
Because someone guilted me, and they said, I'm not sure. You obviously eat meat, but they're a vegetarian, and they're like, I think what you're doing is terrible because you're leading to the murder of a lot of squid. And I defended it, and I said, I'm trying to get people to eat squid instead of beef. So, and these are very small squid. They're roughly 4 inches long, and they live for a year and mate once and then die. And they're not like octopus or something that are have some intelligence. But he suggested that I get one tattooed as like a reminder of what I'm doing. So um, I liked that. And yeah, he keeps me company now. I haven't named him yet though.
Oh, yeah.
What's do you have one what's one thing that you want to share, JW?
Oh, what's one thing I would like to share? Oh, these are one of my favorite products. One of my favorite jerkies.
Yes.
Um, the aliens the aliens in my universe really love them. I love this product. Um, King Orbit likes the Italian herb, and Rain likes the ginger scallion.
All right.
So that's one thing I'd like to share with everybody, that the aliens totally like these products, and it's one of our the delicacies that we love.
Well, I'm happy we're not yet shipping to other planets, but it is in the timeline. So just be sure to reach out if you're interested in seeing it stocked in your local intergalactic mart. You
Yeah,
can see what we can do.
yeah, the aliens they become the Earth, and that's why Joshua, the host, he's human, and he basically gets the products for us right now. You know.
That's very nice of him. I'll be sure to send him more free samples.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so
You got
much.
to get the word out. Yeah.
Yeah, we got definitely, and they're enjoying them so much. Like we're gonna do, I'm gonna in the future, you're gonna see more of the aliens enjoying your snacks. Um,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. But well, that's a wrap for today's show. Huge thank you to Steven Shonts for coming on my show.
Hey, thank
If
you
you
so
like,
much, JW. Yeah, for having me. I mean, I had a blast. This was a lot of fun. So yeah.
yes, it was a blast. It definitely was a blast. If you like the conversation, feel free to share with a friend or a loved one. Until next time on Aliens with JW, the podcast where aliens have conversations with humans.